Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining in today, and thank you to the Parents' Rights Coalition for inviting me to speak. For those who don't know me, my name is Chanel Fall. I was a biology major in university, completed a teacher's college in 2017, and then I taught mainly science at the high school level for a couple years. Now, people probably mostly know me as the anti woke former teacher who incessantly shares examples of wokeism in Canadian schools on Twitter or X. Um, by the way, I don't normally sound like this. My voice has been off for this whole week, so I'm just hoping it's going to cooperate till the end of this presentation. So the goal of this talk isn't to point fingers and identify exactly how we've allowed this ideology to run rampant in our schools. All the groups listed here are partly responsible for what's happening right now, probably especially those in red. And uncovering exactly how we've gotten here is important, especially if we are to reverse it. But today I'm going to focus instead on the implications of it all rather than the causes. Oh, there you go. It was hard to tell if that was a school or what. It is a school. I want to use my experience as a teacher to give you a better idea of the logistics of how the woke belief system is pushed on kids in public school. And my hope is it can help you be more knowledgeable and effective when you speak to people about this, whether it be to your child, their teacher, your elected representatives, or whatever the case may be. The rainbow glasses here are from the cover of Cynical Theories. You might recognize them. It's a great book, particularly if you want to understand the current obsession with race, gender, sexuality. I really can't think of a better symbol to represent becoming woke than these glasses. When a child or adult accepts the woke worldview, it's as if they've constantly got a pair of these on. So everything is now seen and evaluated through the lens of equity and so-called social justice. Just to state the obvious for a second, having the glasses on has nothing to do with accepting that some people are gay, being kind, or anything of the sort. If that was all this was, trust me, I would gladly get a new hobby. The glasses symbolize becoming woke, and being woke involves things like viewing the world through the lens of oppressor and oppressed, where group identity is paramount. It might involve adopting a victimhood mentality, so seeking to identify with and leverage identities that are hypothetically oppressed in order to probably gain credibility or status. It also involves seeing equality as outdated, even discriminatory. The new goal becomes equity, so equality of outcomes, which requires discrimination. It also involves seeing yourself as an activist or a change maker and obtaining a real sense of purpose from your devotion to this cause. Thinking speech that is not in line with the ideology or offensive to you in some way should be called out and shut down. There's no real understanding of the value of free speech. And it manifests also as an inability or unwillingness to debate ideas because you rely instead on shaming others and silencing opposing views. So these are just a few of the characteristics of wokeism. And of course, with all of this, to lead kids astray and distract them and poison their minds, they miss out on actual learning and on aspirations to contribute productively to society rather than destroy it. So when and where will kids encounter woke ideology at school? The first one, their teachers and the material they select, is a huge, obvious one, and I will discuss it in more detail a bit later. I just thought I'd start by giving you a taste of all the other ways kids might encounter the ideology at school. So I'll give you examples of each one, and just so you know, all the examples I'm going to show you here come from Canadian public schools. And this is just a tiny, tiny sample of what I could show you. This stuff is happening from coast to coast in both Catholic and public schools. School clubs can be a great thing, obviously, when they're teaching kids useful skills, allowing them the space to be creative, make friendships, and all that. But many of them these days exist for the sole purpose of radicalizing kids to be social justice activists. They might call it a GSA, which used to mean Gay Straight Alliance. Now it means Gender Sexuality Club, or it comes in, all kinds of other names where the main goal is activism. It could be an equity club, a social justice club, a rainbow club, a black student association, and the list goes on. Here's a picture from a pride party for the Gender and Sexuality Club at an elementary school in Whitby. You can see the teachers printed out a bunch of affirmations for the students to color. So there's a lot of them that are quite concerning. This particular one says, "My body is the gender and sex I say it is." So this is what kids are learning in these clubs. Oh, and when I shared this picture on Twitter, the school blocked me. Okay, so clubs will recruit kids with posters in the hallways. Teachers and students might do a round of short presentations through each class. They might talk about it in the morning announcements, etc. So as a parent, you shouldn't expect to be contacted with information. They're going to go right past you. On top of being a place where students will get radicalized, the club will usually organize school-wide activities, decorate the hallways and stuff like that to get kids who aren't in the club involved. So here you see GSA members, decorating the halls with flags. This one it says the GSA helped create this board where they're teaching kids that, they all have a gender identity inside. Or they might work on something like this where they're explaining to kids all the meanings of the different flags. This is quite common. They might make posters to teach their fellow students about using inclusive language and stuff like that, and this will probably go in the hallway for everyone to see, and saying you shouldn't use the words boys and girls because discriminatory, I guess. On the second picture here, if you look at point number 5, they write, if they haven't come out to their parents, don't tell their parents that they're transgender. So this is probably students in grade 4, 5, 6, I would imagine. This is the kind of stuff they're learning in a GSA. Morning announcements generally happen every day. Typically, they include a daily land acknowledgement, along with information about clubs and events, etc. This example here is from a school that decided to define an LGBT word every day for Pride Month last year. So let me read it to you. It goes, today's LGBT word of the day is lesbian. A lesbian is a non-man who is attracted to another non-man. Today, we focus on lesbian people and what they stand for. Like many others in the queer community, lesbians suffer from a lot of discrimination. Today, we are just celebrating them and their stories. Very empowering. Okay, then there's the hallways. If ever you get the chance, walk through your kids' school and have a look. Either students in clubs will work on these, or maybe a class will do a project that they'll then showcase, or it could just be an activist teacher who's doing it all on their own. That happens too. So this one's all about pronouns. That was for Pronoun Day, I believe, in the fall. This one looks all cute, but, with the bears and stuff, but what they're getting at here is trying to sell the idea that equity is better than equality, because you can see the bears giving the same thing, the big bear is giving the same thing to both these little bears, and only one of them is actually getting the apple because he started out with a little advantage here, or he was brighter than the other one and he stepped on a stone. So we show this and we say, oh, well, that's not fair. Everyone needs to be given what they need. And this bear needed the apple to be lower. Of course, we're never talking about whether equity can actually be applied in society at large, whether it's actually feasible, whether what it's going to lead to, where it's led to historically. Um, we're just going to sort of sell the idea with these little cute cartoons. And teachers bring their students to these posters. Like I've seen teachers do unlearn walks and stuff like that, where they just take their students around the school to see all the unlearned posters, and then they're going to ask the students, what do you see here? You know, what could this represent? Is this representative of society? Look, this bear is darker than this one. Is this how it is in our society? And of course, yeah, that's what they're going to want the students to believe. Here's one where it's all about trans students, like my pronouns are not optional, stuff like that. This one was at an elementary school in Waterloo. You can see a white man racing a black woman, and it says, oh, and she's got all these obstacles in her way. And then it says, what's the matter? It's the same distance. So this idea that black women would be systemically oppressed and have less chances and stuff like that. Here they've defined all these LGBT terms in the hallway. Terms like gender identity, which actually doesn't refer to anything. It's just a made-up concept that doesn't exist. You know, this idea that you have a gender inside of you and only you know it, and everybody else has to sort of accept that this is who you are, and then change their language and sort of affirm that you truly are the gender you say you are, instead of just, you know, being rooted in reality and knowing that boys exist and girls exist and getting on with life. So school assemblies are another one. As a parent, you're not going to get a notification for this. They're just going to get the whole school together. They might read them a book. They might talk about how they can be more inclusive, talk about pronouns, whatever. They might also get the students involved in this. So the students might do a presentation on how their peers can be more inclusive, what language should be used, and all of that stuff. Then you've got read alouds, can be school-wide read alouds like this one. This one, I believe, was in a school around Vancouver. I think here the teacher's actually reading the book, but sometimes they'll just put on a YouTube video of an activist reading a book that usually has to do with some kind of social justice thing. Like this one here is, you know, it looks kind of cute. You've got all these kids with different skin colors getting along, whatever. It's called Our Skin. Then you open it up, and it's not about not judging by skin color and things like that. It's just a racist book. So here's just two of the pages from that book. Long time ago, way before you were born, a group of white people made up an idea called race. They sorted people by skin color and said that white people were better, smarter, prettier than they deserve, and they deserve more than everyone else. Racism is also the things people do and the unfair rules they make about race, so that white people get more power and are treated better than everyone else. The kind of thing we're teaching kids. This book, I've seen it in so many classrooms. So just more on the topic of read alouds here. Here you've got the Durham board that is pleased to share that they will be encouraging all Durham kindergarten classrooms to join in on the National I Am Jazz Day of Reading. This is that book about the young boy who transitioned to be a girl called Jazz, and it's, you know, glorifying transition, making it seem like just this normal thing that kids might aspire to do. Or this one here where this teacher or principal or whatever explains that they read the incredible book read today as part of their school-wide read aloud. So this is a book about a crayon that looks red, but on the inside he's blue, and it's about how he sort of becomes his authentic self. And of course, it's not just that they're going to read this book and then call it a day. They're going to discuss it after, and they're going to see. They're going to ask the kids what kind of groups today might have this kind of experience, and how should we treat them, and what kind of language should we use with them, stuff like that. Okay, then you've got guest speakers, so groups that come in speak to maybe the entire school, maybe just a few classes. They might do a workshop or something. They could be board employees, they could be third-party organizations, probably organizations that get a lot of money from the government. This group here is called the Get Real movement. They are often in schools. Oops. So you can look at this for yourself, but yeah, you've got the idea of this gender identity inside, that they're going to tell kids that all of them have this inner feeling, and it's really important to be themselves and express this inner gender. Then talk about language rules, right? So what not to ask or say about a trans person, all of the things you shouldn't say, and what you can say instead. So instead of what is your real name, it says, is this something you want me to keep between us? When did you turn into a girl? Do you want me to remind people of your pronouns? Hayden used to be Kyla. No, don't say that. Just say Hayden. Or say, their name is Caden now. So just... Okay. So here we've got a guy who's presenting to all of the different classes. You can see the webcam is on in different classrooms, so he's probably presenting to like 100, 200 students at once about intersectionality and all of these group identities. Got this guy, Aubrey Norona, who goes into schools. You can look on his website, but he's got a pretty packed schedule where he's just repeating the same like 5 talks over and over. His main talk is about why being not racist is not good enough anymore. So he's going to try to tell you that being colorblind is not good. If you're trying to treat everyone the same based on their not treat them any different based on their skin color. You're not doing it right, because the way that progressives do it, we have to see race as a really important factor, and then we have to treat people differently based on that. It's a very lucrative business for race hustlers. He gets paid, 5 presentations. He's charging, can't see if that's for $4,300 plus HST. 5 presentations, so that's probably 5-hour-long presentations that could be done in a day. So why is our taxpayer money paying this? I have no idea. Another thing you might not be aware of is schools do a lot of collaborating between teachers. Like they might have a grade 8 teacher that's going to pair up with a grade 1 teacher, and then they're going to do some kind of activity together. Oftentimes I see they're using the older kids to teach the younger kids about woke ideology. Obviously, they don't say, though they're not going to call it woke ideology, but what they're doing is plastering them with ideas about group identity and inclusion and diversity and all of this, and getting them to pass on the memo to the younger kids. So here you've got the grade 8 students who are doing a read aloud and activities centered around anti-racism. These kids look like they're probably in grade 1 or something. Then you've got the grade 2 students who are having meaningful conversations with their reading buddies from grade 7. Meaningful conversations, for those who aren't super familiar with this ideology's lingo, it means a conversation where only woke ideas are permitted. This one, I forgot to put the other picture where it shows what it is, but it was a group of older students that went into a younger classroom, and they were just leading them through this activity where in the middle they write their name, and then in the inner ring they write their identities, these based on this. So they want to write what their race is, their ethnicity, their gender identity, their sexual orientation, and all of this stuff. And then on the outer ring, they want them to write the dominant identities in society. So being white, being straight, being Christian, all of these ones will be on the outside, so then they can see how many of their identities correspond to the dominant identities. How lovely is that? So library books are another one to watch out for. I'm sure you've seen some of the pornographic stuff, but there's also just this obsession with race and gender all the time. You've also got to watch out for the librarians themselves. As you can see here, using the Power Flower to help students explore and understand their intersecting identities. Our incredible teacher librarian engaging students in critical conversations on intersectionality, privilege, and oppression. Okay, then you've got the theme days, which are incessant. You've got Pride Month, Trans Awareness Week, Trans Remembrance Day, Pronoun Day, Coming Out Day, and the list goes on. So there's always going to be some kind of excuse to bring the activism in under the guise of, oh, well, I'm just celebrating this important day. And the school boards are all about that. Here you see a school mascot that's a wolf. I think it's in the York region, if I remember correctly. But this on International Coming Out Day, or National Coming Out Day, they decided that their school mascot was going to come out as non-binary. So then they had their mascot going in from class to class and introducing themselves with their new pronouns. Beyond these extracurriculars and the school-wide activities I just went over, that an individual teacher may not have much say in, there's no shortage of teachers who indoctrinate kids within their classroom. Here there's a group of grade 4 and 5 students on the left who are filling in identity maps that are asking them all about their sexuality, gender, and race. And on the right we have the work of a student who has a thread running through a set of identity groups that I guess they've learned make up the dominant culture. White, neurotypical, straight, Christian males. And then if you're lucky enough to be part of the marginalized groups, then you're the good person, you've been oppressed, you should leverage your victimhood, and people should listen to you and be really kind to you. On the left here is a slide from a 7th or 8th grade class in a Catholic school here in Ottawa. On the right's an activity they did in a grade 10 English class in Toronto. Both have students evaluating their own power and privilege based on their group identities. So essentially we're asking innocent students, are you an oppressor? Are you oppressed? Or like somewhere in between? What are you going to do about it? So the whole point is we have to dismantle these oppressive power structures. Then you've got a grade 1 and 2 teacher who explains what his students did that day. We learned important words like privilege, power, fair, dominant culture. Then he says, very big words for grade 1, 2, but we definitely understood that some people are given privilege and others are oppressed for things they cannot control. What an empowering message for little kids, who otherwise, by the way, would have just played with each other and not thought twice about their skin color. This stuff just makes me sick. These teachers are not getting in any trouble for this kind of thing, by the way. They post about it freely on social media. So beyond the extracurriculars and the school-wide activities I mentioned, to what degree are teachers forced or expected to teach their students this belief system? So are they free to not indoctrinate? And I'd say this is a complicated question because there's many factors that would play into the answer. But in general, I'd say as much as teachers are free to indoctrinate, they're also quite free not to. So long, you might be surprised to hear me say that. So long as they're able to fly under the radar, so sit in those awful meetings, not complain too much, potentially collaborate on stuff that they're not actually planning to use, um, hide their disgust, just basically shut up. They are mostly left alone to do their job in their own classroom. They're not monitored all the time. They might just be evaluated by their principal like once every 5 or 10 years. So it's not like they're micromanaged too much. So now you might be thinking, don't teachers have to follow the curriculum? How is it possible that some teachers can teach woke ideology and others don't have to? So let's talk about the curriculum for a second. The curriculum is a document that outlines the knowledge and skills students should learn in each course. Yes, teachers are required to teach the learning expectations that are outlined in the curriculum, but how they teach it is up to them. So they aren't given a set of prepared lessons to deliver or materials to use. And the learning expectations are pretty vague to begin with. So there's a lot of wiggle room. Every province or territory has their K-12 course curriculums available online in slightly different formats. The only exception really is Yukon doesn't have its own. It follows the Alberta curriculum, and Nunavut's just a big mess, to be honest, because it follows a little bit of what's going on in Alberta, a bit of Northwest Territories, Manitoba too. So it's a bit hard to follow. Here are all the curriculums in Ontario with the date of their last revision. Now, unfortunately, every time they update the curriculum, it seems to get more woke, which can make avoiding it increasingly difficult, risky, or just unlikely. It is possible to avoid teaching in a politically biased way, but that might require just a bit more of a defiant attitude from the teacher. All right, let me give you an example. In Ontario, the grade 4 through 8 English curriculum includes this paragraph here. It says, students will generate and develop ideas about various topics, such as topics related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to other subject areas, using a variety of strategies, drawing on various resources, including their own lived experience. Okay, so if you put yourself in the shoes of a woke zealot teacher, an activist, they're going to see that and what are they going to do with it? They're going to take it all the way. They're going to stretch it as much as they can. They're like, this is a green light. This is perfect. So it even says, including their own lived experience. So they might start their course with an activity like one of the ones I just showed you, where students are categorizing their own identities, and then they're going to talk about societal issues, and then they're going to give them a list of social justice topics and get them to pick one, and then relate their own lived experience as a victim or oppressor or whatever to the social problem, give their opinion about it, or talk about, how we can make the world better by being activists for this cause. So you get my drift. They're gonna take it, and in a way, yeah, they're just following their curriculum. They're totally free to do that. They can bring whatever resources they want. Then you put yourself in the shoes of an anti-woke teacher, and you could read this and say, well, yeah, I'm going to get my students to generate and develop ideas about various topics. Sure, that's fine. Such as topics related to diversity. No, that's just a suggestion, so you don't have to do that. It's just kind of examples of what you could research, and you're just going to choose other subject areas instead. And then where it says they can include their own lived experiences, you're not going to interpret that in the same way that a woke zealot would. You're not going to make that mean group identity. You're just going to look at that and say, yeah, we all have different life experiences. We have different families and interests and hobbies, and so that's what you're going to focus on. So you've got the two sort of extremes. They're not going to be an anti-woke defiant teacher is just not going to teach wokeism. It's not going to happen. Doesn't matter what's in the curriculum. A woke zealot is going to teach it. Even if it's not written like this, even if it's not suggested, they're gonna find a way to bring it in. But if you're somewhere in the middle, if you're someone who's not super interested in politics, maybe, or you just don't want to cause trouble, you want to follow what you're told, you see something like this, then yeah, you're probably going to include some, because it's suggesting that teachers should talk about topics related to DEI. So you're probably going to bring in some social justice topics. You might not push it as much as a woke zealot would, but you're still going to be discussing these topics with the kids. You might even be aware of the lived experience lingo, so you might do some activities related to group identity and stuff like that. So it really just depends on the teacher. All right, well, I will end my presentation here. I've probably already gone over the time by a little bit, so I do apologize for that. I hope it's been useful to sort of see how wokeism gets brought in, what kind of freedom teachers have, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you to get this stuff out of our education system. Thank you very much for your attention.